How long are we gonna let this stash mop our floors before we put him out?
Preston Shaw, COO. Hargrove Industries bleeding $90 million. CEO Nathan Caldwell needed cuts. Preston pointed at one name, Aaron Brooks, custodial, black, 22 years. Aaron stood in the lobby. He held out a folded yellow page.
Mr. Caldwell, I wrote a plan. It could save this company.
Preston snatched it, crumpled it, dropped it in the mop water.
A janitor saving my company? What's next? The dogs run the boardroom? Know your place, boy.
Vivian Cole laughed.
Does he even read?
You're done, Aaron. Clean out your locker.
Aaron bent down, picked up the crumpled page from the puddle, smoothed it, folded it into his breast pocket, walked out. 40 people, nobody spoke. Nathan just threw away the one idea that could save his dying company, worth $2 billion. Aaron's pickup was a 2004 Chevy Silverado with a cracked dashboard and a rear-view mirror held on with electrical tape. He drove 12 miles without turning on the radio. He pulled into the driveway on Elm Terrace. Small brick house, white shutters, chain-link fence. A plastic tricycle tipped over on the lawn. Ellie was in the kitchen. His daughter, 28, single mother, night shift nurse. She had James on her hip, 4 years old, sticky fingers, half-eaten banana. She took one look at her father's face and set the boy down. What happened? Aaron sat at the kitchen table, pulled the crumpled yellow paper from his breast pocket, laid it flat, pressed his palms over the wrinkles. Slow, deliberate. They let me go. Nathan Caldwell, in the lobby, in front of everyone. What about your plan? I gave it to him. Preston Shaw grabbed it, crumpled it, dropped it in the mop water, called me a monkey, called me boy. Vivian Cole asked if I could even read. Silence filled the kitchen like water rising. Ellie sat across from him. Dad, 22 years, not one sick day, and they crumpled you up like trash. Aaron looked at her, calm, unbroken. They crumpled the paper, Ellie, not me. Her tears came, not his. His stayed where they always stayed, somewhere deep and unreachable, behind 22 years of practice. You should sue them. I don't want their money. I wanted them to listen. He slid the yellow paper into a manila folder on the counter and stacked it on top of 14 worn notebooks. 22 years of hand-drawn diagrams, route calculations, vendor analyses. 22 years of writing things down while nobody watched. That night he read James a bedtime story. A bear who lost his hat. He did all the animal voices. He always did. But when the boy was asleep, Aaron sat in the hallway with his back against the wall. In the dark. His hands were shaking. The next morning, Danny Soto sat in his car watching the lobby video for the 11th time. He hadn't planned to record it. He was pushing a mail cart when he saw Aaron hold out that paper, like it mattered more than anything he'd ever carried. Danny reached for his phone. Instinct, the kind you develop when nobody believes you unless you have proof. 48 seconds. Everything captured. The crumple. Know your place, boy. Aaron walking out past 40 people who did nothing. Danny didn't post it. But by noon, the video had traveled through Hargrove's lowest paid workers. Custodians, cafeteria staff, mailroom clerks. Text to text, phone to phone. People who understood exactly what they were watching. That evening, Danny knocked on Aaron's door. They sat at the kitchen table. Danny placed his phone between them and pressed play. Aaron watched himself get humiliated in high definition. Mr. Brooks, I got everything. What do you want me to do? Aaron looked at the frozen image of himself picking up paper from a puddle. Put it away, son. I don't want to destroy anyone. I just wanted them to see what I see. Danny pocketed the phone, but he didn't delete the video. Some things need to exist, even when nobody's ready to see them. 14 miles away, Nathan stared at a spreadsheet bleeding red. Third quarter losses, $90 million. Henderson Logistics threatening to pull a $200 million contract. 3 board members calling, none of them kind. Preston leaned in the doorway. Outsource the Eastern Corridor. I've got 3 vendors, Ridgewell, Stonebridge, Apex. We sign by Friday, we stop the bleeding. Nathan nodded. Put together the deck. The building emptied. The new janitor came through, younger, missed corners, left streaks. Nathan noticed. He'd never noticed before. At 9:15, he walked through the lobby, stopped near the elevator bank. The floor was clean, but not the way Aaron kept it. There was a difference he couldn't name. A young black intern passed him in the hallway. She stepped aside. Eyes down, shoulders pulled in. The posture of someone who'd learned to take up less space. Nathan had seen that before. That morning, in a man holding a yellow page. At home, his wife noticed, "You're somewhere else tonight." "I fired a man today, a janitor. He tried to hand me something and He stopped. "What was it?" "I don't know. I didn't read it."
Nathan lay awake until 2.
And somewhere between midnight and dawn, 2 words floated up from the part of his brain that had glanced at that paper for 3 seconds. Root consolidation. He'd seen that phrase before. In a McKinsey report that cost $2 million and took 4 months. 12 Ivy League consultants. 4 months. A janitor had written the same words on a yellow page. For free. 2 weeks ground forward. Stock slid 6%. Henderson sent a formal letter. 90 days or the contract was gone. Preston's outsourcing plan wasn't landing. Then on a Tuesday, Nathan's phone rang. Theodore Garrison, 71, former VP of Logistics, retired a decade ago, a Hargrove legend. "I read about you in the journal, Nathan. You're sinking." "We're managing."
You're drowning.
"Did you ever talk to that janitor? Brooks, Aaron Brooks. That man knows more about your supply chain than your entire C-suite. I watched him for 15 years. He'd finish mopping and stand at the routing board for 10 minutes. Just looking. I asked him once what he was doing. He said, "Counting the mistakes." I told your predecessor. Nobody listened. Silence. "He's not a janitor, Nathan. He never was." Nathan sat with the dead phone against his ear, then opened his laptop. Aaron Brooks, employee ID 04-1162, 22 years, 0 complaints, 0 absences. He closed the laptop, picked up his car keys, and for the first time in 6 years as CEO, Nathan Caldwell drove south, toward a neighborhood he didn't know existed, to find a man he'd thrown away. Nathan Caldwell had never driven south of Independence Boulevard, not once in 6 years. His world was uptown, glass towers, valet parking, restaurants where the cheapest steak cost more than Aaron Brooks made in a day. Elm Terrace looked like another country. He parked his black Mercedes between a rusted Dodge and a minivan with a missing hubcap. Italian loafers on cracked pavement. A kid on a bicycle across the street stopped and stared at the car like it had landed from space. He knocked.
Ellie opened.
Arms crossed, eyes hard as marble. She recognized him immediately, the man who watched while her father was called a monkey. "You have some nerve showing up here. My father gave your company 22 years. Not one sick day. And you let them crumple his work and throw it in a puddle, while your COO called him a monkey and told him to know his place." Her voice was surgical. "So whatever you came to say, make it worth his time, because you already wasted 22 years of it." Aaron's voice from inside, calm. "Let him in, Ellie." She stepped aside, not because she wanted to, because her father asked. The kitchen was small, clean, yellow curtains, refrigerator covered in James's crayon drawings. The table was wood, old, scratched, solid, the kind that had held 1,000 dinners and 1,000 conversations that mattered. Aaron sat at one end, didn't stand, didn't offer a handshake. Between them, a manila folder and 14 worn notebooks stacked beside it. Nathan sat. "Aaron, Ted Garrison called me. He told me about you, about what you've been doing for 22 years. The company is in real trouble, the kind that ends with bankruptcy and 3,000 people out of work. Ted says you understand the supply chain better than anyone at Hargrove." Aaron said nothing. "I need to see what you wrote. Everything." Silence. The refrigerator hummed, A clock ticked above the stove. You already saw it. Nathan blinked. You already saw what I wrote. In the lobby. You let Preston crumple it and throw it in mop water. You didn't stop him when he called me a monkey. When he said, "Know your place, boy." When your VP asked if I could read. You stood there and told me to clean out my locker. In front of 40 people. Nathan had no defense. No corporate language that could repackage what happened. I made a mistake. Aaron shook his head. You made a choice. There's a difference. A mistake is forgetting someone's name. A choice is watching a man get called a monkey and deciding he's not worth defending. Nathan exhaled. You're right. It was a choice. The wrong one. I'm here because my company is dying and the smartest person I've ever ignored might be the only one who can save it. Aaron studied him for a long time, then spoke. I'll help you, but not the way you're imagining. I'm not handing you my notebook so your analysts take credit. If you want what I know, you'll meet my conditions. 5. Non-negotiable. 1. You will apologize to me in the lobby of Hargrove Industries. Same lobby, same time, same employees watching. Not because I need it, because they need to see that a man in a blue uniform has value. 2. My title changes. Operations consultant. Real contract. Real authority. Real seat at the table where I used to vacuum the carpet at midnight. 3. Every custodial and maintenance worker gets a 20% raise, and once a quarter, one of them sits in a strategy meeting. You don't get to use me to feel good while ignoring everyone else who looks like me. 4. You read my notebooks, all 14, every page, before I discuss a single idea. You don't get to skip to the answer. You have to understand the 22 years it took to write the question. 5. If this works, my name goes on it. Not yours, not the board's, mine, Aaron Brooks, because I am done being invisible. Silence. The lawnmower outside had stopped. Even the refrigerator seemed to hold its breath. Ellie's tears ran without sound. Not sad tears, proud tears. The kind a daughter cries when her father becomes the man the world should have seen all along. All 5, Nathan said. All 5. Or I stay in this kitchen and you drive that Mercedes back to your glass tower. All 5. You have my word. Aaron looked at Nathan's extended hand. Looked at it for a long time. Earn it first. Nathan withdrew. For the first time in his professional life, he understood a handshake had to be deserved. He walked to the door. As he stepped onto the porch, "Grandpa, who was that man?" James, pajama pants, stuffed dinosaur under his arm. Aaron scooped him up, looked through the screen door at the Mercedes pulling away. "Someone who's learning, baby." He carried James back, set him down, turned to the table, opened the manila folder, pulled out the crumpled yellow page, still wrinkled, still water-stained. Beneath it, 10 more pages. The full plan he'd been carrying for months. He ran his fingers over the first page of Notebook 1. There, in the margin, handwriting that wasn't his, smaller, softer, blue ink faded over 20 years. His mother's. Written the week before she died, when she'd found the notebook on his nightstand. "I'm so proud of you, baby." Aaron closed his eyes, pressed his fingers against the words. "I'm not done yet, Mama." And 200 miles away, a retired old man named Ted Garrison was already on the phone, calling in the one favor that would change everything. Nathan Caldwell kept his word. It took 4 days to arrange. 4 days of calls to HR, legal, communications. 4 days of people in expensive suits telling him it was a terrible idea. He did it anyway. Tuesday morning, 8:47. Same time, same lobby. Word had spread like a current through water. No memo, no announcement. But by 8:30, every floor had emptied. Employees lined the mezzanine balconies, pressed against glass walls, stood along marble corridors. Custodians, analysts, engineers, security guards. 600 people, waiting. Nathan stood in the center. No podium, no teleprompter, just a handheld microphone from the second-floor AV closet. He looked at the floor, the same spot where a crumpled page had landed in mop water 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I stood in this lobby and let a man be humiliated. A man who gave this company 22 years. He tried to hand me his work, and I watched it get crumpled up and thrown on the floor he'd just cleaned. I didn't stop it. I didn't defend him. I told him to clean out his locker and walked away. His voice cracked. He didn't hide it.
His name is Aaron Brooks.
What happened here was not a corporate decision. It was a failure of basic human decency. Mine. I am asking Aaron to come back, not as a favor to this company, as an honor we haven't earned yet. The glass doors opened. Aaron walked in. White button-down, no tie. His choice. 600 pairs of eyes. The same 40 feet of marble he'd walked 3 weeks ago in the other direction.
Then a sound from the back.
One pair of hands clapping. Slow, deliberate. Danny Soto, beside his mail cart. One person joined. Then 20. Then the lobby erupted. Not applause exactly, but something raw. Part relief, part grief, part recognition. 600 people acknowledging they'd stood here 3 weeks ago and said nothing. This was their apology, too. Aaron stopped 3 feet from Nathan. Nathan extended his hand. Aaron looked at it, nodded once. "We'll see."
He didn't take it.
Nathan lowered his hand. He understood. Some things need time to earn. That night, Nathan began reading. Notebook 1. Aaron's handwriting. Small, precise, the penmanship of a man who'd learned to be careful with everything because he'd never been given much. First page, dated 22 years ago. Clean the 4th floor. The routing board in the logistics office has 3 errors. Nobody's noticed. By the 3rd notebook, Nathan was sitting on his office floor, notebooks in a semicircle, cross-referencing Aaron's hand-drawn maps with digital logistics data on his laptop. Notebook 6, page 42. The entire eastern distribution corridor diagrammed in pencil on graph paper. Every hub, every transfer point. Below the diagram, projected savings from route consolidation. $120 million annually.
Nathan pulled up Hargrove's internal analytics from 2019.
Same corridor, same variables. Proprietary software that cost $4 million to develop. Aaron's hand-drawn estimate was within 2.3% of the computer model. No software, no database, no degree. Just a man who mopped the logistics floor every night and paid attention. 3 in the morning, empty building. Nathan whispered to the dark, "My God, he was right about everything."
He picked up Notebook 9.
Stopped at a page different from the rest. No diagrams, shakier hand. Ink slightly smeared. 14 years ago, the day after Aaron's mother's funeral. She said I stole nothing. She said I was building something. She said every floor I cleaned was a classroom. I have to believe her. If I stop believing her, I have nothing left. Nathan closed the notebook gently. Sat in the dark for a long time. Thursday. Aaron's first strategy session. 38th floor conference room. Mahogany table. 12 leather chairs. Windows overlooking Charlotte. Aaron used to vacuum this carpet at midnight. Now, he sat at the table. Notebooks in front of him. Nathan to his right. CFO across. Head of Analytics. VP of Distribution. And at the far end, Preston Shaw and Vivian Cole. Aaron stood, opened Notebook 6. His voice was quiet but absolute. No filler, no apologies. Hargrove runs 11 regional routes feeding 4 vendor layers. 6 routes overlap by more than 30%. 3 vendor layers add cost without capacity. Consolidate to 6 corridors. Eliminate the redundant layers. You save $120 million in year 1. By year 3, $340 million. He turned the notebook around. Pencil on graph paper, every route labeled, every cost calculated. The CFO studied it for 30 seconds. You're certain about $120 million?
Page 42.
Calculated it 8 years ago. The numbers have only gotten worse, which means the savings have gotten bigger. Silence. The kind that falls when powerful people realize the smartest person in the building had been emptying their trash cans for 2 decades. But Nathan wasn't watching all the faces. He should have been. At the far end, Preston Shaw had gone white. Not impressed, terrified. 3 of the 4 redundant vendor layers were his shell companies: Ridgewell, Stonebridge, Apex. 40 million siphoned over 6 years. Aaron's plan mapped the exact nodes Preston used to steal. Aaron's plan wasn't just brilliant, it was accidentally lethal. Preston smiled at the table. Interesting, but I'd want consultants to verify before we bet the company on a pencil drawing. Aaron looked at Preston for the first time, held his gaze for 3 seconds, turned back to his notebook. Pencil doesn't lie. Over the next 2 weeks, something shifted. Nathan and Aaron worked together daily, not as CEO and consultant, more like 2 men learning each other's language. Aaron brought Nathan to his neighborhood, a diner on Elm Terrace, Formica counter, coffee and ceramic mugs. The cook knew Aaron's order. The mailman waved. A woman from the laundromat stopped to ask about James. "These are the people I build systems for," Aaron said. "The laundromat woman waits 3 extra days for deliveries because the route skips this zip code on Tuesdays. The cook pays 11% more for oil because the vendor layer marks up small orders. Every inefficiency in your supply chain lands on someone's kitchen table." Nathan set down his mug. "I've spent my career in corner offices. I forgot there were people at the other end." "You didn't forget. You never knew." Saturday, Ted Garrison drove up from Beaufort. 71. Fishing vest. He walked into the conference room and saw Aaron at the table with notebooks and a cup of coffee someone had actually brought him. Ted's eyes went red. He crossed the room and hugged him. "Took him long enough." "You're the reason I kept writing, Ted." Sunday evening. Living room floor. Crayons. Construction paper. James drawing with the intense concentration only a 4-year-old can sustain. "Grandpa, I made a map." A wobbly line from home to is cream. "That's the most efficient route I've ever seen," Aaron said. James grinned. "Can we go?" "Tomorrow, baby, I promise." Aaron laughed. Deep, easy, the kind that starts in the belly. His first real laugh in weeks. Ellie heard it from the kitchen and pressed her hand against her chest. She'd missed that sound. But laughter has a shelf life when a man like Preston Shaw is running out of time. Monday morning. Preston closed his office door. 3 phone calls. A board member. Another board member. A business journalist at the Charlotte Observer. Tuesday afternoon, the article went live. The headline crawled across every screen in the building. Hargrove CEO hands company strategy to former janitor. Insiders call it desperation. And Preston Shaw, reading the headline from his corner office, smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. Because destroying Aaron Brooks had just become his only way to survive. The article spread like gasoline on concrete. By Wednesday morning, every major business outlet had picked it up. The Charlotte Observer piece was just the match. Cable news was the fire. CNBC ran a panel at noon, Fox Business at 2, Bloomberg by 4. Dying company bets future on janitor's handwritten plan. Hargrove CEO under fire for hiring unqualified custodian as strategy lead. No degree, no business. Why blue-collar romanticism endangers corporate America. Social media split down the middle. On one side, hashtag janitor genius. People sharing the story with heart emojis. Give that man his flowers. Viral tweets from people who'd never heard of Hargrove Industries, but understood what it felt like to be told your ideas don't matter. On the other side, hashtag unqualified risk. Investors, analysts, the kind of people who believe a man's worth is printed on his diploma. This isn't a movie, this is a publicly traded company. Caldwell has lost his mind. Hargrove's stock dropped 8% in a single day. 3 board members called Nathan directly. None of them were kind. Preston watched the chaos from his corner office with the patience of a man who had lit the fire and was waiting for the building to collapse on everyone except himself. Thursday, his next move. A letter signed by 5 board members, all hand-picked, all fed information by Preston over private dinners and golf rounds for 2 weeks. We formally request the immediate termination of the consultancy arrangement with Mr. Aaron Brooks. This engagement has resulted in material shareholder harm. We further request a special session to discuss leadership accountability and potential restructuring of executive roles. Restructuring of executive roles. Corporate language. Plain English. We're coming for your chair. Nathan called Aaron. They're trying to push you out.
Aaron was quiet.
Then, they're trying to push us both out. There's a difference. The reporters found Elm Terrace on Friday. 2 news vans by 7 in the morning. A photographer with a long lens aimed at the front door. Ellie answered once, said, "No comment," and closed the door so hard the hinges rattled. James pressed his face against the window. "Grandpa, why are those people outside?" Aaron pulled him away from the glass. "They're just confused, baby. They'll figure it out."
Ellie paced the kitchen.
"This is insane. James can't even play in the yard." "It'll pass." "When? When Preston Shaw decides he's done? That man isn't trying to win a news cycle. He's trying to bury you." Aaron sat at the kitchen table, opened his laptop, and read the op-ed everyone was talking about. No degree, no business. Written by a business professor at Duke. The word unqualified appeared 11 times. He read every word, closed the laptop. Hands steady, face still. "They're scared, baby. Scared people get loud. Quiet people get ready." He walked to his closet, pulled out notebook number 1, opened to the first page. Day 1. Cleaned the 4th floor. The routing board in the logistics office has 3 errors. Nobody's noticed. He'd been ready since day 1. Preston's kill shot came Monday morning. Emergency board meeting. 38th floor. He walked in at 9 sharp. Charcoal suit, silver cufflinks. A 40-slide deck loaded on his laptop. Doctored projections showing Aaron's plan would hemorrhage $60 million in the first year. Fake models, manipulated inputs, numbers built on the same talent for deception that had hidden 3 shell companies for 6 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I respect Nathan's instincts. But instinct doesn't run a company. Data does. And the data is clear. This plan, authored by an individual with no formal training, poses an unacceptable risk. Red arrows, declining curves. 3 board members nodded. 2 more looked at Nathan with the expression that precedes a resignation request. The vote was scheduled for Friday, 72 hours. After the meeting, Preston caught Vivian in the hallway, pulled her into a side office. "I need your vote." "Preston, if this goes wrong, you go down with Caldwell. You signed every vendor contract I put in front of you for 6 years. If I fall, your signature is on the invoices. Think about that." He straightened his cufflinks, walked out. Vivian stood alone, staring at the closed door. Tuesday night, 9:14, Nathan's office. Dark building, coffee cups, 14 notebooks across the desk.
Aaron was tracing vendor routes.
Something had been bothering him since the strategy session, since Preston's face went white. "These 4 vendor layers I want to eliminate," Aaron said. "I've been pulling invoices, cross-referencing public records." He turned his laptop to Nathan. 3 names: Ridgewell Partners, Stonebridge Fulfillment, Apex Distribution. 3 companies, same registered agent, same P.O. box in Wilmington, same bank routing number. Nathan leaned forward. "Those are independent vendors. Preston vetted them." "Preston vetted them because Preston created them." Aaron pulled up the spreadsheet. 6 years. Every invoice approved by the same signature. Preston Shaw, COO. $40 million, Nathan. 3 companies with no trucks, no warehouses, no employees. Just a P.O. box and a bank account. Nathan stared at the screen. Confusion, disbelief, fury. Then something quieter. "He wasn't just stealing money," Aaron said. "He was stealing it through the exact routes I mapped in my notebooks. That's why he wants me gone. I'm not a threat to the company." He closed the laptop. "I'm a threat to him." Nathan stood, walked to the window. Charlotte glittered below. His company, his name. and a man in a charcoal suit had been hollowing it out for 6 years while everyone watched the janitor. "We need proof that holds up in court."
We have proof. Aaron tapped Notebook 9.
Page 31. I flagged Ridgewell Partners the week it appeared. No trucks, no warehouse, no listing. I wrote it down 6 years ago. Nathan picked up the phone. Wednesday morning, Danny walked into Nathan's office with his phone. The lobby video, unedited, full audio.
Nathan pressed play.
48 seconds. Preston's voice, clear and unmistakable. "How long are we going to let this monkey mop our floors?" Then, "Know your place, boy." The crumple. Aaron walking out. "This proves Preston targeted Aaron to protect himself," Nathan said. "Are you willing to testify?" Danny didn't hesitate. "Mr. Brooks is the only person at Hargrove who ever treated me like I existed. I'll say that in any room you need me to." That afternoon, Ted Garrison called a former federal prosecutor turned corporate attorney named Howard Bellamy. Semi-retired. The kind of lawyer who didn't advertise because he didn't need to. Ted gave him the 30-second version. Howard gave him 2 words. "I'm in." By Thursday evening, Howard had filed for an emergency injunction. Block the board vote. Freeze Preston's accounts. Preserve all evidence. Hearing set for Friday morning. Judge Catherine Whitmore presiding. Thursday night. Aaron's porch. Purple-black sky. Stars you'd never see from uptown. Ellie brought coffee, sat beside him. The news vans were gone. The street was quiet. Crickets. A dog barking 3 houses down. "Your mama would have loved this fight," Aaron said. Ellie smiled. "Mama would have ended it already." Aaron laughed. Quiet, tired, real. He thought about the courtroom tomorrow, about Preston Shaw, about 14 notebooks and a crumpled yellow page that started everything. Inside, James was sleeping. Dinosaur pajamas, dreaming about ice cream maps and bears who lose their hats. And in 12 hours, Aaron Brooks would walk into a courtroom carrying nothing but a notebook and the truth. And Preston Shaw would learn what it costs to underestimate a man with a mop. Friday morning, 9 o'clock. Mecklenburg County Superior Court. The courtroom smelled like old wood and floor polish, a smell Aaron Brooks knew better than anyone in the building. 22 years of cleaning floors, and even here, the first thing he recognized was the work of someone invisible. The gallery was packed. Hargrove employees filled the back rows. Custodians in clean shirts, cafeteria workers who'd swapped shifts, security guards who'd clocked out early. They came because a man who looked like them was about to stand up in a room full of suits and say something that mattered. Media filled the left side. Sketch artists and reporters with notebooks open. Charlotte Observer, CNBC, Bloomberg. The Wall Street Journal had sent someone from New York. Aaron sat at the plaintiff's table. White button-down, no tie, Notebook 9 in front of him. Beside him, Howard Bellamy, silver-haired, 70, the kind of lawyer whose silence made people more nervous than most lawyers shouting. Nathan sat in the first row behind Aaron. Not at the corporate table, not flanked by attorneys. He'd chosen where he belonged. Ted Garrison beside him. Ellie on Aaron's other side, her hand on his shoulder. At the defense table, Preston Shaw, charcoal suit, silver cufflinks, 2 attorneys from Charlotte's most expensive firm. Beside him, Vivian Cole, gray-faced. She kept looking at Preston, then at the door, then back at Preston, calculating the distance to every exit. Judge Catherine Whitmore entered, mid-60s, sharp jaw, a reputation for fairness and impatience. She didn't tolerate theatrics. She didn't tolerate liars. "I've read the briefs. Let's not waste time. Mr. Bellamy," Howard stood. "Your Honor, this motion seeks 3 things. An injunction blocking today's board vote, a freeze on Mr. Shaw's personal accounts, and 3 entities: Ridgewell Partners, Stonebridge Fulfillment, Apex Distribution, and preservation of all vendor procurement documents from 2019 to present." He paused. "The basis is evidence of a 6-year fraud. Mr. Shaw created 3 shell companies, routed over $40 million in fabricated invoices through Hargrove's supply chain, and personally approved every payment. This was uncovered by Mr. Aaron Brooks, whose supply chain analysis independently mapped the exact nodes Mr. Shaw was exploiting. Preston's attorney stood. Your Honor, Mr. Brooks is a former janitor with no financial credentials. His analysis is handwritten in pencil on graph paper. This court should not grant extraordinary relief based on the hobby notes of a terminated maintenance worker. Judge Whitmore looked over her glasses. I'll decide what this court should and shouldn't do. Sit down. Mr. Bellamy, call your witness. Aaron walked to the stand. Carried notebook 9 the way a preacher carries a Bible. Mr. Brooks, what was your job at Hargrove? Custodian, 22 years. The logistics department is on the 4th floor. I cleaned the 4th floor every night. What did you observe? Everything. Every routing board. Every manifest left on a desk. Every cost sheet on the wall. I didn't hack a computer. I read what was in front of me, and I wrote it down. Tell the court about page 31. Aaron opened the notebook. Dated 6 years ago. New vendor, Ridgewell Partners. No trucks in the loading bay. No warehouse in the directory. No employees in the lobby register. I checked every morning for 2 weeks. Nothing. Just invoices. He turned the page. 3 months later, Stonebridge Fulfillment. Same pattern. Next page. 5 months after, Apex Distribution. Same thing. 3 companies with no physical presence, receiving payments every month. Howard turned to the judge. All 3 entities share a registered agent, a P.O. box, and a bank routing number. The authorized signatory is Preston Shaw. A murmur through the gallery. Judge Whitmore was reading the exhibit. Your Honor, we'd also like to enter Exhibit C, a video of Mr. Brooks's termination. Preston's attorney. Objection. Relevance. Howard. The video establishes that Mr. Shaw personally participated in terminating the one employee whose work threatened to expose his fraud. It goes to motive. I'll allow it. The courtroom screen lit up. 48 seconds. Preston's voice filled the room like a slap. How long are we going to let this monkey mop our floors before we put him out? The snatch, the crumple, paper dropping in mop water. Know your place, boy. Vivian's laugh, Nathan's silence, Aaron bending down, smoothing the paper, folding it, walking out. 40 people, not one word. The video ended. Heavy silence, not decorum, something deeper. The weight of people watching something they couldn't unfeel. Ellie's hand was pressed against her mouth. Ted's jaw was locked tight. In the back row, a custodian in a clean white shirt was crying without sound. Judge Whitmore removed her glasses. I've seen enough of this exhibit. Recess requested. Denied. Howard entered the financial records. 6 years of invoices. Preston's signature on every one. Wire transfers to an account in his wife's maiden name. Preston overruled his own counsel and took the stand. Pride. The same pride that made him laugh at a janitor. The same pride that would break him now. Howard asked 9 questions, each one a nail. Did you create Ridgewell Partners? Vendor diversification strategy. Stonebridge Fulfillment? I'd have to review records. Apex Distribution? Silence. The registered agent is your personal attorney. The bank account is your wife's maiden name. The invoices total $41.2 million. Did you authorize those payments? This is a witch hunt orchestrated by a janitor with a grudge. Judge Whitmore leaned forward. Mr. Shaw, the witness presented entries dated 6 years before his termination. That is not a grudge. That is a record. Answer the question. Preston didn't answer. Howard turned to Vivian. Ms. Cole, did you sign the invoices approving payments to these vendors? Vivian looked at Preston, looked at the judge, looked at Aaron, the man she'd laughed at in a lobby, the man whose intelligence she'd mocked. Does he even read? He could read. Better than anyone in this room. He'd read her company's supply chain in pencil while she signed fraudulent invoices without reading a single one. Her voice was thin. I signed because Preston told me they were board approved. I didn't verify. The board never saw them. Preston's face drained. Every door in the room had just locked from the outside. Judge Whitmore asked Aaron if he wished to make a statement. He stood. No notes. The crumpled yellow page, laminated by Ellie, wrinkle lines preserved, sat on the table. Your Honor, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an executive. For 22 years, I was the man with the mop, and I was proud of that, because I kept that building clean for the people who worked inside it. Every floor, every window, every restroom. That was my work, and it had dignity. But I also watched. I watched shipments that didn't make sense, routes that cost twice what they should, vendors with no trucks and no warehouses. I wrote it all down because I believed that someday someone would listen. Mr. Shaw called me a monkey. He told me to know my place. He said a man like me had no business having ideas. But here's what I know. The people who mop the floors, who empty the trash, who work the night shift. We see everything. We hear everything. We are not invisible. We are the foundation. I didn't come here for revenge. I came here because $40 million was stolen from a company that couldn't afford to keep its janitor. I came here because the truth was in my pocket the whole time. They just never thought to ask. Silence. Then Ellie's sob. Then Ted pressing his fist against his mouth. Then something in the gallery, not clapping, a low exhale. The sound of something being set right. I'm not going to pretend I kept it together during that speech. I didn't. And if you did, rewind and listen again. Because that man just stood in a courtroom and told the world that mopping a floor is not less than running a company. And he was right. He was right the whole time. Judge Whitmore straightened her papers. The injunction is granted. The board vote is blocked. Financial accounts associated with Ridgewell Partners, Stonebridge Fulfillment, and Apex Distribution are frozen. Mr. Shaw's personal accounts are included. She looked at Aaron. Mr. Brooks, this court has no authority to grant you what you're truly owed. 22 years of being unseen. But I can ensure that what you documented is treated as the evidence it is. Federal marshals entered. Preston stood, walked toward the door between two men in dark suits. He didn't look at Aaron. He couldn't. Nathan stood from the front row, walked to Aaron, extended his hand. The same hand refused at a kitchen table, the same hand that had let a yellow page be crumpled. Aaron looked at it. This time he took it, not because of the speech, not because of the ruling, but because Nathan had driven to a neighborhood he'd never visited, read 14 notebooks at 3 in the morning, and stood behind Aaron in a courtroom instead of behind a corporate attorney. Earning it had taken exactly what Aaron said it would: time and proof. And outside the courthouse, the cameras were already rolling, because by Monday morning, the whole world would know the name Aaron Brooks. The federal investigation took 11 weeks. Preston Shaw's fraud was not sophisticated. It was arrogant. He'd created 3 fake vendors, routed payments through them for 6 years, and assumed nobody would look closely enough to notice. Because in his world, the people who mopped floors didn't read routing boards. The people who emptied trash didn't study invoices. The people below him were furniture. He was wrong about one man, and that man had 14 notebooks. The FBI confirmed every number Aaron had mapped in pencil. $41.2 million. 3 shell companies sharing a P.O. box, a registered agent, and a bank account in Preston's wife's maiden name. Every invoice signed by Preston. Every dollar traceable. The indictment came on a Tuesday. Securities fraud, wire fraud, embezzlement. 12 counts. 15 to 25 years. Preston was arrested at his home in Myers Park at 6 in the morning. Bathrobe. No charcoal suit. No cufflinks. No smile. Just a man watching federal agents walk through a door paid for with stolen money. Vivian Cole cooperated fully. 6 years of emails, meeting notes, signed invoices. She was terminated, not charged. 3 weeks later, a handwritten letter arrived at Elm Terrace. No return address. Mr. Brooks, I signed those invoices without reading them. I laughed at you without thinking. I don't expect forgiveness, but I will never again look at a person in a uniform and assume I know what they're capable of. I'm sorry. Vivian Cole. Aaron read it at the kitchen table, folded it, put it in the manila folder with his notebooks. He didn't respond, but he didn't throw it away. Some apologies don't need an answer. They just need to exist. Aaron's plan was formally adopted by the board 6 weeks after the indictment. He oversaw every phase, not from a corner office, but from the logistics floor where he'd spent 22 years watching. He walked warehouses, rode distribution trucks, sat with dock workers at shift change, and asked what wasn't working. They told him things they'd never told a manager. Because Aaron wasn't a manager. He was one of them. Within 6 months, logistics costs dropped 34%. 11 routes consolidated to 6. Transit times shortened 19%. Henderson Logistics renewed their $200 million contract, added $80 million more. Within 18 months, Hargrove Industries crossed a threshold it had never reached in 51 years. Market valuation, $2 billion. The board named the framework, not the Caldwell Plan, not a corporate acronym, the Brooks Protocol. Nathan announced it at a board meeting. Same mahogany table Aaron once vacuumed at midnight. This plan was conceived by a man who earned no degree, held no title, and asked for nothing except to be heard. It is named after him, and it will stay named after him for as long as this company exists. Aaron Brooks was appointed Chief Operations Advisor, a new C-suite position, not decorative. He reported to the CEO, sat on the board, had a vote. His office was on the 4th floor, his choice. The routing board he used to study at midnight was visible from his desk. The first thing he did was fulfill Condition 3. Every custodial and maintenance worker received a permanent 20% raise. Then he built something bigger, a program called Ground Floor Insights. Once a quarter, one maintenance worker would present operational observations to the executive team. Not a suggestion box, a chair at the table, a microphone, 5 minutes. The first presenter was Curtis, 60 years old, night janitor, 9 years at Hargrove. He stood at the front of the conference room in a pressed shirt, hands trembling, and told the executives that the HVAC system on floors 12 through 18 ran 6 hours longer than necessary because a thermostat sensor had been miscalibrated 3 years ago. I felt the difference every night. 12 through 18 were always colder after midnight. I mentioned it to facilities twice. Nobody followed up. The CFO ran numbers that afternoon. Curtis's observation saved Hargrove $2.1 million annually. Curtis cried at the podium, not because of the money, because someone listened. Aaron watched from the back of the room, leaned against the wall, the same wall he used to lean against while pushing a mop, and smiled. The ceremony was on a Tuesday morning, 8:47, same time, same lobby. A glass display case mounted on the marble wall beside the elevator bank. Eye level, impossible to miss. Inside, a single sheet of yellow legal pad paper, crumpled, wrinkled, a faint water stain where it had landed in mop water, fold lines permanent. Below it, a brass plaque. This proposal was crumpled and thrown on the floor of this lobby. It was written by Aaron Brooks, a custodial engineer who served Hargrove Industries for 22 years. It saved the company. It is displayed here as a permanent reminder. Wisdom has no uniform. Aaron walked forward. The marble echoed under his shoes the way it had the day he'd walked out. He touched the glass. His fingertips rested there. In the reflection, superimposed over the crumpled paper, his own face. 58 years old. Lines earned by decades of invisible work. The paper and the man, both finally where they belonged. Grandpa, James tugged his hand. Dinosaur sneakers. Is that your paper? Aaron looked down. That's our paper, baby. Ted Garrison caught his eye from 20 feet away, nodded once. Later, by the 4th floor window overlooking the loading docks, Ted found him. I told them about you 10 years ago. Nobody listened. You listened, Ted. That was enough. Ted's voice went rough. Your mother would have been proud. Aaron watched a delivery truck back into the dock, one of the optimized Brooks Protocol routes, on time. She always was. even when I couldn't see it. Danny Soto enrolled in logistics management at Central Piedmont the following semester. Aaron wrote his recommendation letter. First line, Danny Soto pressed record when 40 people looked away. That is the single most important qualification for leadership I have ever witnessed. Danny read it in his car, sat for 15 minutes, didn't drive anywhere. Next morning, he knocked on Aaron's fourth-floor office. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for everything. Aaron looked up from notebook 15. You pressed record when everyone else watched a man get humiliated. That took more courage than anything I've done. You picked up that paper from the floor and kept walking. That's courage. Then I guess we're even. They weren't. They both knew it. 3 months later, National Business Leadership Conference, Chicago. 1,400 CEOs, founders, investors. Nathan didn't bring slides. He brought a story. I crumpled up a $2 billion idea because the man who wrote it held a mop. I threw away a plan that saved my entire company because I decided, in 3 seconds, that a janitor couldn't possibly have something valuable to say. I didn't read it. I crumpled it and told him to clean it off the floor. I'm standing here because Aaron Brooks was more gracious than I deserved. He gave me 5 conditions. Every one was about dignity. Not for himself, but for every person in a blue uniform who gets walked past like furniture. The question I want every leader in this room to sit with tonight: whose voice are you crumpling up? Whose brilliance is mopping your floors while you step over it on the way to a meeting about innovation? You don't have a talent shortage. You have a listening shortage. 1,400 people stood. 45 seconds of applause. Evening. Elm Terrace. Aaron's porch. Ellie brought coffee. Same chair, same silence. But this silence was different. It floated. You did it, Dad. We did it. No, you. 22 years, 14 notebooks. You! He didn't argue. Some battles a daughter needs to win. Inside, James was asleep. On his nightstand, a crayon drawing. Wobbly line from home to Grandpa's work. Aaron pulled out a new notebook. Number 15, black cover. Uncapped a pencil. Day 1 as Chief Operations Advisor. The routing board on the 4th floor still has 2 errors, but now they'll listen. He closed the notebook, looked at the stars. Somewhere in this city, a janitor was mopping a floor, a cafeteria worker wiping down a counter, a security guard walking a hallway at midnight, noticing things nobody asked him to notice. Aaron Brooks had been one of them, for 22 years. He never raised his voice, never threw a punch, never needed to. He just wrote it down and waited. 22 years for someone to read the first page. Have you ever been dismissed because of your title, your appearance, or your position? Drop your story in the comments, because someone needs to hear it today. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's ever been told they're just anything. Hit subscribe so you never miss a story like this.
A $2 billion idea crumbled up and frowned in a mop bucket, not because it was wrong, because the man holding it wore a blue uniform. Aaron Brooks spent 22 years cleaning floors and reading every routing board, every invoice, every cost sheet left on a desk. 14 notebooks. Nobody asked, nobody looked. They called him a monkey, told him to know his place, and that same man walked into a courtroom with nothing but a pencil, notebook, and the truth, and exposed $41 million in fraud that the entire C-suite missed. But here's the part that really stays with me. Aaron didn't do this for revenge. She didn't do it for money. She did it because he believed for 22 years that someday someone would listen. That's not patience, that's the faith in your own worth when the whole world tells you you're invincible. So let me ask you something. Which idea are you crumpling without even reading it? And if you were the one being overlooked right now, how long are you willing to keep writing in that notebook? Because Aaron wrote it for 22 years and the world finally read the first page. Have you ever been dismissed because of your title or your position? Drop your story below. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And remember, wisdom has no uniform.